لا إله إلا الله.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and his pure immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal faraj. I would first like to express my gratitude to IIS for inviting me in such a holy night, in such a holy place, and it's an honor to be able to speak a few words with dear brothers and sisters like you. Inshallah, tonight I want to speak about the concept of Tamatholat, which in English I'll be translating as visions or apparitions. Tamatholat. Acquiring a good insight into Tamatholat may help one to understand the stories of the Quran in a better light, and also in relation to oneself and one's growth in spiritual wayfaring. Tamatholat can be regarded as a criterion. However, I will be mainly speaking about Tamatholat in relation to the Quranic stories, inshallah. The first story is in relation to Prophet Moses, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. After spending 10 years in the city of Madian with Prophet Shu'aib, or Jethro, as he's called in the Holy Bible, he decided to move out and return to his hometown and reside with his mother, which was in Egypt. So he and his family and other companions, they all left on their way. Now, since he was cautious on his way to Egypt so that the Coptic soldiers of Pharaoh don't catch him on the way, he didn't go through the normal route during his travels. Assalamu alaikum. He took different diversions, and one night he got lost on his way to Egypt. It was a very dark, rainy, cold night. And in addition to all the difficulties, his wife, who was Prophet Shu'aib's daughter, according to the Holy Bible, she's called Zipporah. She was pregnant and she started having labor pains. She was going into labor. Now all this was happening, and then suddenly Prophet Musa alayhi salam saw a fire upon the mountain. He saw a fire on the mountain. Now there were many people around him, but only Musa alayhi salam saw the fire. Now what was this fire? If it was the external fire that we see today, other people should have seen it too. But that wasn't the case here. Only Prophet Musa saw the fire. In chapter 20, verses 9 to 10, وَهَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ مُوسَى إِذْ رَأَى نَارًا. Did the story of Moses reach you when he sighted a fire? فقال لأهله أمكثوا إني آنست نارا. And he said to his family, wait, indeed I see a fire. I descry a fire. I've caught sight of something here. لعلي آتيكم منها بقبس أو أجد على النار هدى. Maybe I will bring you from the fire a brand, or find some guidance at the fire. Well, the external prima facie meaning of the verse the second part of it, is, okay, I'll get the fire and it will help us in our journey throughout the night, or it will make you warm during labor. But esoterically, maybe it's referring to what was to come in relation to guidance. And this huda, he mentioned the verse, was to be the commencement of his prophethood. But there was no external fire though. So what was that thing? What did he see that no one else around him had the capacity to see? Since that thing wasn't, people weren't able to see it with the physical eye, it wasn't a material fire. It must have been something else. If it was a material fire, other people would have been able to see it with their physical eyes. But this wasn't the case. Only Musa alayhi salam saw it. What Hazrat Musa alayhi salam saw, we call a tamathul, a vision, an apparition. We all have tamatholat. Everyone in this room has had visions and apparitions. We've all had them. But we've had them during sleep. Here, Prophet Musa was awake. He was fully conscious. He had those visions whilst awake. We usually have these visions when we're asleep. On sleep, we enter higher realms of existences. One is barzakh, for example, translated as isthmus. Higher than barzakh is the realm of the intellect, and there are higher and higher realms of existences until one reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Bursi, who was a famous mystic, quotes a verse from the Holy Bible and translates it into Arabic, saying, ظَاهِرُكَ لِلْفَنَا. Our external side, our external dimension is to be destroyed. وَبَاطِنُكَ, but inside, the essence of what we are, ana, is I. Allah is saying this, according to the Holy Bible. Our destiny is to Allah ultimately. That's the goal. In this journey, we transcend many realms of existences. We do it during our sleep. It's very easy to spiritually elevate during sleep. Why? Because we become detached from all worldly tendencies. We're asleep. We become disconnected from the worldly life because we're asleep. The key to be able to disconnect oneself and not occupy the heart with other than Allah, the key to spiritual wayfaring is to do this. To not occupy the heart with other than Allah. Having a big car, a big house, these are okay as long as it doesn't occupy the heart. You don't become detached. When we sleep, we transcend into the higher realms. We all go to barzakh, we all go to alam aql, the realm of the intellect, where the angels are. In barzakh, we've all dreamt. The world of barzakh is the world of dreams. What we see when we dream, that's the realm of barzakh. People asked Prophet Ibrahim, can you give us a sign in relation to Qiyamah? Then Allah made people start dreaming. The world of dreams is the world of barzakh. We eat, we speak, we do all things there. but it's not a material realm of existence. It's immaterial. There's shape, there's size, there's color, but there's no matter in Barzakh. We even transcend to the realm of the intellect. And that's where the angels are. That's where heaven and hell is, the realm of the intellect. In Barzakh too, there's a heaven and hell. But there's a heaven and hell in every realm of existence. Ayatollah Hasanzadeh Amuli, Hafadahullah, said technically, the definition of a dream is the unveiling, is the kashf that we do in alam aql, in the realm of the intellect. That's called a dream. But then one of the faculties of the soul, on descending to earth, one of the faculties of the soul converts that abstract data which one unveiled in the realm of intellect into pictures. For example, you see, your sister has passed away. The data from the realm of the intellect was that this woman will bear a child. When that data becomes converted into pictures, it becomes translated as she passing away. It's very difficult to interpret dreams. Not anyone can do it. Or you're drinking milk. You're not dreaming of drinking milk. The dream is that data which you unveiled in the realm of the intellect. That's the dream. The data was an increase in sustenance. But then that became converted into a set of pictures. You drinking milk. It's easy to transcend to higher realms of existences when you're asleep. Because you're cut off from the worldly life when you're asleep. Now, the more sincere the heart is, the less contaminated the heart is, the more accurate that conversion from that abstract data to the pictures will be. But an impure heart will convert that abstract data, but the images won't be truly reflective of the abstract data. In any case, during sleep, we all have Tamatholat. Who produces the Tamatholat? You do. It's a function of the soul, of the nafs. When you dream all those pictures, all those images, you are the producer. It's all about you and your actions being manifested in a specific way. Barzakh is like the world of dreams. Don't think that since it's like dreams, it's not real. And the logic of the verses of the Quran is that this world is described as a mirage, kasarab. But anna dar al-akhirah lahiyal hayawan. That's the true life, the hereafter. The hereafter is true life. And it starts on physical death. إذا مات الإنسان فهو في قيامته. A tradition we have with something like that. Qiyamat starts on death. Barzakh is a minor qiyamah. And then there's a major qiyamah. But qiyamah starts on death. Now, if you undergo a certain pattern of spiritual wayfaring, you can undergo barzakh whilst awake. You don't have to die. You don't have to be asleep. You can undergo whilst being awake. You can have those apparitions. You can have those visions. But it requires a certain etiquette of spiritual wayfaring. Some people in this world, they undergo their barzakh, they undergo their heaven, they see even higher realms than heaven. Whilst in this world, for most of us it's after physical death, but these people transcend all these realms whilst awake in this world. So, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam saw a fire. No one else saw it. Hazrat Musa, whilst awake, he was able to ascend the different realms of existences, including higher than the realm of the intellect. That abstract data of those higher realms became converted into barzakhi pictures, and the result was a fire. Just like when we see a fire in our dreams, he would see a fire, but he was awake because his iman was high. He was awake. He was only occupied with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world. Other than Allah never preoccupied his heart. He saw the visions. He saw the apparitions. Now, why was it fire though? Okay, first of all, what was that abstract data in relation to, and why did it appear as fire? Some scholars have said that the pictures were reflective of the status quo that Hazrat Musa was in at the time. Deep down, during that journey of Hazrat Musa, we said it was cold, rainy, dark, snowy. His wife was in the process, of labor. The fire, which his soul converted that abstract data into the barzakhi vision of fire, may be reflective of his inner status quo, because he was in urgent need of warmth, of being guided at night, providing warmth for the family, and so on and so forth. Maybe, some scholars have suggested that. But in the verse which I read, it said there may be guidance at the fire. Okay, the external prima facie meaning is evident, but esoterically, maybe it's referring to the commencement of his prophethood. Guidance here is guidance of the Ummah by means of him as a holy prophet. Then he went up the fire. He went up the mountain, and in chapter 20, verse 12, Inni ana rabbuk, he suddenly heard this voice. What this voice too? If me and you were there, we wouldn't have heard it. This too was a tamathul, an apparition. Inni ana rabbuk fakhla' na'alayk innaka bil wadi al muqaddasi tuwa. Indeed, I am your Lord, so take off your sandals. You are indeed in the sacred valley of Tuwa. Now, Imam Khomeini, rahmatullah alayh, on this verse, he's written on some of the esoteric dimensions of this verse. So he went up the mountain and he did take off his sandals. We don't negate the prima facie meaning of this verse. No one is rejecting that. But all verses have esoteric dimensions. Imam says, and I've translated this from one of his works, it's in relation to the clause, so take off your sandals. What does that mean? if you want to read the Holy Quran stories as a book of history, you will lose out. After a whole lifetime, you'll see you've lost out. You've treated the Quran as a book of history, and that's the minimum. All these stories are in relation to your spiritual wayfaring. They want to build you, build your soul to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you read, so take off your sandals, there must be some more depths involved here. In Imam's works, he would always go into the esoteric dimensions, the butun. But when someone reads Imam's works like 40 Hadith, Adab-e-Namaz, these different books, every time Imam wants to enter the esoteric dimensions, he always says, maybe this is the esoteric dimension. Maybe the butun is this. Because a ma'soom can only enter the butun of the Holy Quran. Entering the butun isn't tafsir. It's more on a par with ta'weel, esoteric interpretation. And it's unproblematic to make an effort and endeavor and try to strive through the verses of the Quran, extracting the esoteric dimension. It's okay. Many people can see the realities of the Quran. When they read the Quran, they see the realities. When they read about the story of Pharaoh and Musa and the segregation of the sea, they see it. They see Tamatholat, apparitions of what's happening. They gain a very deep insight into stories of the Quran. They have visions of the stories of the Quran. But Imam would always say, maybe this will happen, maybe this will happen. Imam, maybe, Imam, he's spoken a lot on what will happen to Egypt, for example, what will happen to Saddam, what will happen to Aghay Khamenei when the first assassination attempt on his life, Aghay Khamenei's life was made. Imam made a very important comment. These things suggest that on many of these incidents, Imam had those visions of what is to be. There are many examples of this. Maybe Imam had those visions. Well, I personally am not of a level, to say what Imam had or didn't have. But these things are possible. It's very unhealthy, though, to say that this person has this vision, this person has it. That's not a very healthy approach, because people can be very easily misled. But it is possible. That's all I want to say. It is possible for people to live in this world, awake and have these visions and apparitions, because the realm of the intellect is timeless. There's no time there. If you enter that realm, once the data there becomes converted into barzakhi pictures, you will acquire knowledge of the future. These are possible. It's just that even those who acquire such abilities, they usually don't disclose it to people. And that's a true sign of an arif. Anyway, Imam wrote that, so take off your sandals. That's the operative clause here. Imam said, one must acknowledge that the thorns along one's way to one's religious destination, the thorns along one's way when one wants to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that of love of the world and love of the ego. Prophet Moses, with his station of prophethood and ma'rifah, when hastening towards uniting with his beloved, the call, so take off your sandals, you are indeed in the sacred valley of Tawal, prohibited him from having love with respect to his wife and child. Yes, if you intend to enter the valley of love, which belongs to the holy and mukhlasin, you cannot do so whilst having love of others in your heart. This was said to Moses, whose minimal love is not like the excessive love we have in relation to other than Allah. And maybe that's why the expression sandals was employed, i.e. being the lowest part of the body and the most easy to detach from. Because the sandals is the lowest part of the body and it's most easy to detach yourselves from. But this is the station of the mukhlasin. Many people may be mukhlis, where their actions are done out of sincerity for Allah's sake. We all have a degree of ikhlas within us. However, only the minority are mukhlas. Because with the mukhlas, even if you are 100% mukhlis, this is your ultimate line, your ultimate slogan. You say that I commit X action for the sake of Allah sincerely. That's what you will say for every action. But this sentence itself is a form of shirk. You're a mukhlis, but at the same time you're a mushrik too. But not shirk of the open, disclosed type. It's the hidden, concealed type of shirk, where Allah's ibadah is compromised. When you occupy your heart with other than Allah, in action to action, moment to moment. And that's why in chapter 1206, the verse of the Holy Quran explicitly says that most of you who believe, most of you are mushriks. Mushriks of the hidden type, the concealed type. Why? Because you say, I commit this action for the sake of Allah. First of all, you recognize the I, the ego is still there. Then you attribute the action with yourself. You're not truly annihilated in Allah yet. You don't have that fana'ul af'ali, where all actions you see emanating from Allah alone. You say, I did this action for the sake of Allah. I don't want to speak too much about the mukhlasin here, because that's a different subject. But the mukhlasin is a very strong station, very lofty level. Now, during these few nights, we're approaching the end of the first 10 days of the holy month of Dhul Hijjah. These 10 days are very significant. And these 10 days are reflective of the story of Musa alayhi salam. But this wasn't at the beginning of his prophethood when he went up the mountain. This was many years later, when he went up the mountain and he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. It wasn't like how we fast. The Sharia then was a different form. But he fasted for 40 days and for 40 nights. So for 40 complete days, he wouldn't eat or drink. Some people think that's very difficult, and it is difficult for us. But I always give this example. When a man and woman, before they want to marry, and let's say the preceding last few days before they want to marry, the love is very great between them, to such an extent that sometimes the man or the woman may lose his or her appetite. They don't even think of, for example, food. All they think of is the partner to be. And on marriage too, when they marry, they only think of one another. Day in, day out. That was one example. Maybe it wasn't very good to me. I'll give another example. Once, Ayatollah Mar'ashi, since he was in love with his work, he would study so deeply that after many days he realized he didn't have anything to eat for a few days. So it's not difficult. This is love of Allah now that Prophet Musa had for 40 days and 40 nights. The 40th day, something happened. The 40th day will be the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the day after tomorrow, which is Eid al-Adha. The 40 days of spiritual wayfaring of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam finished on Eid al-Adha. What happened? Communion, unity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the eyes of the heart. Now, I'll read these verses. Now, in Imam Khomeini's tafsir of Surah Al-Hamd, those who are interested, you can read what he writes, but I'll go through it in brief. وَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. When Moses arrived at the miqat, the meeting place, and his Lord spoke to him, قَالَ رَبِّي أَرِنِي أَنظُرْ إِلَيْكَ. O Lord, show yourself to me. Arini, so that I may see you. Show yourself. After 40 days of Sayr Suluk, this is where one can attain, the levels that one can attain to. The goal is seeing Allah. The goal is being a manifestation of Allah's attributes. That we also, like the Christians, have the tradition that Allah created man in His own image. Yes, we too can acquire those divine attributes and be Allah-like. قَالَ رَبِّي أَرِنِي أَنظُرْ إِلَيْكَ, so that I may see you. قَالَ لَن تَرَانِي. Then he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will not see me. Then Imam speaks about this very nice in his tafsir of Surah Al-Hamd, with very delicate terms. He says, as long as you're Musa, as long as you are you, as long as there's an I, the first person singular, you won't be able to see me. Walakin, however, I am seeable. There is a get out clause here. Walakin unzur ila al-jabal. Look at the mountain. فَإِنِ اسْتَقَرَّ مَكَانَهُ فَسَوْفَ تَرَانِي. If it abides in its place, then you will see me. فَلَمَّا تَجَلَّى رَبُّهُ لِلْجَبَالِ. When his Lord disclosed himself to the mountain, جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا. He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leveled the mountain. Leveled it. جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا. وَخَرَّ مُوسَى صَعِقًا. Now what is this mountain? This is Imam saying this. Imam said in one of his works, he said, if there were people around Musa there, no one would have seen the mountain. That mountain which Musa alayhi salam was on is still there. It's not crumbled, it's not leveled. Today the mountain is still there, intact. This wasn't the physical mountain here. This was a Tamatholat again, an apparition, a vision. Where did this vision emanate from? From the nafs of Musa alayhi salam. And then Imam commentates, he says maybe it's reflective of the stage of egoism in Musa. Now, egoism in relation to Musa isn't like egoism in relation to us. Then Imam says in the previous verse, the first episode in the mountain, Musa had fana'ul af'ali. But annihilation in Allah has degrees. He didn't have higher degrees of fana. And that's what he acquired in this journey up the mountain, where his nafs was crumbled, was leveled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when he fell unconscious, وَخَرَّ مُوسَى سَائِغًا, we have traditions of the Ahlul Bayt that say, "Ay mata," he died. But this wasn't a physical death. It was a death of his identity. There's no I anymore. Complete fana, annihilation in Allah's attributes, and according to some scholars, in Allah's essence. He fasted for 40 days and nights. As-sawmu li. Allah says in a sacred tradition, As-sawmu, fasting, is mine. Wa ana ujza bihi. Wa ana ujza, and I, Allah, shall be rewarded by means of it. The reward of fasting is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As-sawmu li. The reward of fasting is acquiring that unity with Allah. Allah is the reward. Not that Allah rewards you. The reward is Allah. You being a manifestation of Allah's attributes. This is portrayed in another sacred tradition where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Man talabani faqad wajadani." Whoever seeks me will find me. وَمَنْ وَجَدَنِي فَقَدْ عَرَفَنِي. And whoever finds me will acknowledge me. وَمَنْ عَرَفَنِي فَقَدْ أَحَبَّنِي. Whoever acknowledges me will like me. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّنِي أَشَقَنِي. And whoever likes me, Allah, will love me. وَمَنْ أَشَقَنِي أَشَقْتُهُ. And whoever loves me, I, Allah, will love them. وَمَنْ أَشَقْتُهُ قَتَلْتُهُ. And whoever I love, I shall kill. Now this isn't the killing of the physical form, the killing of the ego. There'll be no more I. Because we can't get rid of the I. We have something which is called in philosophy hubbul dhati, an essential love in relation to our I. We can commit suicide physically, but spiritual suicide we can't do. Allah has to take away the I. We just have to reach that preface. وَمَنْ أَشَقْتُهُ قَتَلْتُهُ. Whoever I love, I shall kill. وَمَنْ قَتَلْتُهُ فَعَلَيَّ دِيَّتُهُ. And whoever I kill, whoever I, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kill, their blood money, their diya is upon me, Allah. وَمَنْ عَلَيَّ دِيَّتُهُ أَنَا دِيَّتُهُ. And whoever's blood money is upon me, I am the blood money. What does that mean? It's all Allah now. You are a true manifestation of Allah's attributes. There's no more I. Your hands, your tongue, your legs, it's all Allah acting in this world. Now, in the next story, I'm not sure how long I have. If someone can just indicate so I can. This next story is the story of Lady Maryam alayha salam. فَاتَّخَذَتْ مِن دُونِهِمْ حِجَابًا فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا. Thus did she seclude herself from them, whereupon we sent to her our spirit, the spirit being Archangel Gabriel. فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا. Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh, on this clause, laha, has spoken a lot. What does this mean? فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. If you look through the translations of the Holy Quran, many people, many translators fall short here. Maybe the translation is, and he appeared, Jibreel appeared for her as a well-proportioned human. فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا. One of the reasons that the Quran can't be translated is because the irfan of the Quran, the Gnosticism, the mysticism of the Quran is concealed in the prepositions. It's concealed in the huruf al-jar, the prepositions, the particles. The irfan of the Quran is in the prepositions. Otherwise, common nouns can be easily translated into Arabic. But prepositions can be very delicate. What does laha mean? Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh calls this lam in laha lam or rabt, the lam of unity. Lahu ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. Whatever is in the heavens and earth, whatever is in unity with Allah. This is wahdatul wujud here. We only have one existent, one true independent existent, and that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else are just manifestations of this one real independent existence. The lam of unity. فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا. Jibreel appeared for her. What she saw, those who were around Lady Maryam alayha salam, no one saw Jibreel. When she saw Jibreel, no one else saw Jibreel. She saw Jibreel. So it wasn't a physical Jibreel. This too is an apparition. But this one is very easy to understand. It's a tamathul, because the verse in the Quran explicitly says فَتَمَثَّلَ. It's a tamathul. It's an apparition. It's a product of Lady Maryam's nafs. This is a very important point here. She ascended the realms of existences. She went higher than Barzakh. She surpassed and transcended the realm of intellect. She unveiled data from those high realms. On her downward journey, that data which she was able to unveil in the higher realms of existences became converted into apparitions. And this apparition, do you know what, like the dreams which I spoke about in the beginning? But she was awake. The conversion of that data into Barzakhi pictures was the Barzakhi image of Jibreel. As what? As a human being. Why a human being? Maybe because the data which she received was that she was to give birth to a son. فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. The food which Hazrat Maryam had, the Quran says the food was from heaven. The food was a tamathul too. Don't you dream of food when you're asleep? Don't you eat? Don't you drink when you're asleep? But because of her high status, she would have the food whilst awake. That's one possible interpretation that some scholars say. Now you may say, no, this was physical food. Okay, that's okay. That's also acceptable. According to the standard criteria of tafsir, we can accept that too. But this way, this is possible too. Angels have two forms of existences. One is the immaterial existence that they have, which is immaterial, has no size, no shape, no color, is not limited by time and place. But Jibreel here wasn't the immaterial, wasn't the essence of Jibreel. It was a manifestation of Jibreel, produced by the nafs of Lady Maryam. We believe this too in relation to the Holy Prophet during Revelation. Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh has spoken a lot about this in his works. Ibn Sina writes in his treatise on prophethood, سميت الملائكة بأسامي مختلفة لأجل معاني مختلفة والجملة واحدة غير متجزئة بذاتها إلا بالعرض من أجل تجزي المقابل. Here, when Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh quoted this from Ibn Arabi, from Ibn Sina, he said that this one sentence in the treatise of Nubuwwah by Ibn Sina explains a lot of our ma'arif. Angels, there's the immaterial angel, the true essence of what Jibreel is. But also we have angels which are products of people's nafs, depending on the person. Nakir and Munkar have a real immaterial essence, but Nakir and Munkar is different for everyone. Why? Because everyone has their own Nakir and Munkar, depending on their soul. If you were evil, Nakir and Munkar will manifest in one way. Everyone has their own Nakir and Munkar. Why? Because the angel is the barzakh. These are barzakhi manifestations produced by you. They're products of you and your actions. In the hereafter they will be manifested. فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهُ بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. We have many stories in the Holy Quran like this. Prophet Ibrahim, alayhi salam, 4 angels came, beautiful and well dressed. This story, I can expand on this story a lot, but I think time is over now. So I'll just go very briefly through 1 or 2 stories so that you can then research it yourselves. 4 angels came. He saw them beautiful and well dressed. He didn't know they were angels at first. They were products of his own nafs. They were barzakhi manifestations of that abstract data which is now converted by his soul. Only when he laid the tablecloth and brought a roasted calf, he saw that they couldn't touch the meat, couldn't eat. He was scared. Because in those days, if someone doesn't eat what you offer on the tablecloth, that's a sign of enmity. When they saw him scared, they said, "We are messengers of Allah, we are angels. We're here to give you good news." That abstract data into barzakhi manifestations. The news was glad tidings for your wife, Sareh alayhi salam. She was almost 100 years old. She also saw those angels. Those angels were products of the nafs of Ibrahim. How did Sareh see? Excuse me, time is up. There's another session after your speech. Sorry about that. Since there's another session, I don't want to take their time. So I'll just conclude. These Tamatholat are open to everyone. During these 40 nights and 40 days, especially these 10 days of the month of Dhul Hajjah, this was the goal. The day after tomorrow, inshallah, you've reached some degree of this goal. If you don't feel any different, if you haven't made an endeavor or if you haven't striven spiritually, and you feel the same as you were, this should cause your heart to ache. All these programs of spiritual wayfaring during the year with specific etiquette, it's for our growth. It's not there willy-nilly. We really have to make an effort.